What if you were diagnosed with an incurable disease and you decided that it's time to break bad? But instead of becoming Walter White, you reincarnate into cute little girl living the life of an average homeless person in Detroit. So is the manhwa we got for you today that was a personal favorite of EDP 445.
I'm coming out here to pick up a cupcake.
So with 911 on the speed dial, let's begin our recap. Duke Cullen Del Levelton has approached his daughter. He is a powerful man who holds wealth and power. He is a powerful man who holds wealth and power in the kingdom, and is also the main character in the novel titled The Daily Life of the Duke of Lavon's Family. The main character of the novel is a little girl named Lee, who went from being a beggar to becoming the Duke's adopted daughter. It was like winning the lottery for her. She was an honorable invite to the world of wealth and luxury. It seemed like a sweet dream to Lee, but there was one but to her story. She felt pressured. The Duke was definitely a murderer. This fact embarrassed the poor girl and made her wonder about her fate and safety around such a man. The young girl thought carefully over the gentleman's proposal, and her long contemplation might have appeared to him as a sign of refusal. However, let us put things in their proper place. Our protagonist is so young that she doesn't even possess the skill of reading. She has been mastering everything that those around her have learned on her own. On this particular day, she managed to read 2 whole words. A boy who was a friend of our heroine showed interest in her lessons. He thought that trying to read was useless if one was not even sure of one's ability. The princess assured her friend that she knew a few letters. It was a small but important step in her learning journey that she was making on her own. She was eager to change her status as a beggar and was determined to reach her goal. Her first step was to look for a job to begin to change her destiny. The questions of the boy, who did not understand the meaning of the young lady's words, only added to the confusion. The young girl was frustrated, realizing that influencing fate was not an easy task. She realized the need to focus, but her friend distracted her from that thought with his questions. After the loss of her mother, the young princess was forced to go out on the streets to beg for alms. It was a difficult period for her to face the reality of life. Friends in misfortune, claiming passers-by gave money for her cute looks, only emphasized the cruelty of the circumstances and the difficulties she had to face on her way. Therefore, whenever the children discovered rich people on the streets, they immediately informed the young girl. It was like a kind of daily practice for them. If they managed to get alms, they would share. If they managed to get alms, they would share the bread they found and eat it together. Thus, this was their way of life on the streets, where every day was filled with the struggle for survival. One day, the children decided to attract the attention of a young girl to a tall man who, in their opinion, seemed very wealthy. They patted her on the back, pointing at him. The man looked quite respectable, was dressed in black, adorned with a red tie, and wore a nice coat. His appearance left no doubt about his wealth. Lee, who decided to seize the opportunity, had no idea that this chance encounter would change her life forever. She apologized to the young gentleman for bothering him and only asked for a single coin. As she looked at him, the young man in front of her gave her a special thrill. It became clear to her how attractive this stranger was. However, her expectations were shattered in the blink of an eye. The man rejected her request and politely asked her to leave, explaining that he was busy. Thus, the encounter with this man, which Lee considered as an opportunity, turned out to be an unexpected turn of events, leaving her with mixed feelings and disappointment. Lee, taking in the scene, found herself looking at a mind-boggling picture, a young woman staying in a hospital room reading a book in depth. Instantly realizing that it was her own past, Lee noticed that despite her state of health, the young woman was in a good mood and smiling. An important addition: this picture was a detail. The same was immersed in the pages of a book called The Daily Life of the Duke of Lavon's Family, which suggested that this book was directly related to the young gentleman in the coat. Little Lee contemplated these scenes in front of her, realizing that Cullen, this young gentleman, had his own mission, and in that regard everything became clearer. Cullen was on the hunt for a special criminal whose repertoire of crimes was wide and whose danger level was high. He realized that there was no time for deliberation, for the criminal could escape in time by taking advantage of the train. The peculiarity of this criminal was his red cap, but Cullen did not know this. Not having enough information about his appearance, by concealing his identity under the visor of the red cap and changing his appearance, the criminal cleverly blended in with the crowd of poor people, avoiding conspicuousness. While Cullen carried onward, trying to catch up with the train at the railroad station, the criminal, hiding under the guise of one of the beggars, carried out a brutal massacre that left 30 people dead. The first victim of the outlaw was a boy named Walter living in distress. These lines were from a book that Lady Lee had read in her past life, and they led her to fear that similar horrific events could happen again in the present. Realizing that her friend could be in danger, she decided to take action to protect him and prevent the threat. After warning Cullen de Lavon not to go to the railroad station, as it could lead to tragic consequences for many people, the girl faced misunderstanding from the gentleman, who did not take her words seriously. Lee warned the gentleman that a criminal wearing a red cap had recently been spotted in the area. She watched as he skillfully pretended to be heading toward the railroad station, but in fact, he was hiding in an alley, and his appearance exactly matched that of the demon killer William depicted. Warning Cullen, she only asked him if it was true, casting doubt on her words. The young lady was greatly disturbed and begged Cullen to hurry to get to the right place on time. Following the young lady's instructions, Cullen immediately rushed in the direction the girl showed him, eager to react quickly to the possible danger. After discovering the criminal, the Lord used the power of dark magic to punish him for his crimes. Cullen felt incredibly satisfied that he was able to punish and eliminate bandits using a variety of methods. The young lady realized that when Cullen talked about his actions with criminals, he looked like a psychopath, and this made her uneasy. Suddenly the shouting stopped, and Lee realized that she should hurry to leave the place as the situation had become extremely tense and dangerous. Cullen had no time to slip away when he noticed and detained the young princess, whose condition expressed fear and anxiety. He had intended to ask her some questions, but seeing the poor girl trembling with fear, he felt a strong sympathy. A tumult of shouting and crowds of people rushing to flee in the direction from which the sounds were coming only added to the tension of the situation. Realizing that more people would soon arrive here, Cullen took his business card out of his pocket and remarked that it was time for a frank conversation, as there were many prying eyes here. Introducing himself as Cullen de Levelton, he invited Lee to have a conversation with him, meaning to discuss the help she had been given. His purpose was to discuss with Lee about the help given to her or some other important matter. Our heroine is in the world of a fictional novel. Unfortunately, she turns out to be only an unimportant character living in poverty and with little luck. Thus, will it be her ultimate fate to live a life of complete poverty? After all, she hasn't even had a chance to taste the charm and sweetness that this fictional world has to offer. Our heroine hopes that in her next life, she will manage to be born healthy and happy, which will be one of her strongest wishes among all her wishes and dreams. She realized that health holds a special place and is the most important aspect of life. The flowers and pieces of paper covered with unidentified symbols that fell into her hands caused her a sense of surprise and incomprehension, as she could not figure out their meaning. She had seen these letters somewhere before, but her memories of it remained vague and uncertain, giving her no clear understanding of these words. But the pieces of paper, in association with the letters she had seen on a business card, suddenly arose in her mind. These symbols were part of an advertisement seeking servants for the Duke of Lavon's family. A moment of joy quickly turned into the thought, maybe this is my unique opportunity to change my destiny, as she realized the connection between those symbols and her desire to get out of her current situation. In addition, Cullen had mentioned that she was to meet him, which strengthened Lee's resolve to go to this meeting, as she saw it as a chance to change her life. When the servant asked the question if she was saying that this card was given to her personally by the Duke, she remembered that she had already seen these symbols on a paper belonging to the Duke, thus confirming that she had received it directly from him. She confirmed she got the card from the Duke himself, who ordered her to appear before him. A young man appeared and addressed the servant, asking what had happened and why the girl claimed to have been invited by the Duke. The servant informed him the girl claimed that the Duke had personally called this young girl to him, which left him surprised and perplexed. The thought that this boy might be Cullen's son Jade flashed through the heroine's mind, adding mystery to the situation. On second thought, Jade considered the possibility that his father had a new hobby or interest. Lee shows up at Duke Cullen's house and insists on meeting immediately, claiming she has important business that would make it much smoother to read. His attention. Jade, the butler, opens the door and leads Lee inside, instructing her to follow him into the house, implying that the Duke has reasons to meet with her. When the Duke recognizes Lee upon entering the house, perhaps from her previous visits, it causes Jade, the Duke's son, to be surprised to discover her presence unexpectedly. Jade approaches his father about meeting the girl, causing the Duke to be surprised that Lee has provided him with her business card. and suspicions arise about her honesty. Herzog claims to know Lee and feels a certain responsibility towards her, which only adds to Jade's questions and causes him to be even more perplexed. Jade, confused and surprised, feels resentment and disbelief at his father's words, watching her closely and trying to make sense of what is happening. Lee, expressing interest in the condition of the maids, turns to the Duke, taking an active part in discussing the matter and trying to see if there is any change in that direction. The Duke does not immediately understand the reason for the question, causing him to be confused and surprised. The girl explains that she saw an advertisement for servants in a newspaper article and assumes that, given her previous assistance to the Duke, she might have been invited to apply for the position, despite her mere 9 years of age. Lee states that she is strong and healthy enough for her age and is willing to perform a wide range of duties. She states that she is willing to limit her eating to 1 meal a day and is willing to do a variety of chores, such as mopping floors and doing laundry. Lee shows a willingness and determination to offer her services, demonstrating a readiness for labor, which elicits an unexpected request from the Duke and his son. Due to her petite figure, the little girl offers to clean the chimney, which becomes an unexpected suggestion to those present. Suddenly, a girl named Moran enters the room and introduces herself as Cullen's younger sister, causing surprise and questions to arise from those present. Moran shows interest in the girl's parents, asking about their whereabouts and thus causing surprise and curiosity in the room. The girl opens up and reveals that she had a mom who died a few years ago, which illuminates her difficult past and current situation. The Duke's sister asks where the girl usually lives and gets the answer that she has no permanent residence, leaving some mystery in the air. The girl explains that she has to live wherever she can, without a permanent residence, further emphasizing her precarious situation. The Duke finds out where Lee usually sleeps, expressing his concern and interest in her living conditions, which shows his care and attention to the little girl. The little girl explains that she is forced to sleep outside, but claims that, despite the hardship, she tries to keep the place where she spends her nights clean. Lee claims that all she has to do is cover herself with some discarded blanket to sleep on, but her words are met with silent bewilderment and reflect the general sense of sadness in the room. The Duke's younger sister, Moran, asks Lee if she understood correctly that her brother invited the girl here in order to settle accounts with her or offer her some help. Lee replies that she could ask for much more, expressing surprise at the offer to become a common maid, which emphasizes her modest and self-assured nature. Lee expresses her passion for change, stating that she is eager for change and does not wish to remain in the future in her current position as a poor woman. She expresses her desire to change her destiny, to escape the humiliation and difficult conditions she faces on the street, and to achieve a better life. Lee's goal is to achieve a normal life, free from the constant hardships and humiliation she experiences on the street, and to build a more sustainable future. Marion, the Duke's younger sister, asks if this is the main reason why Lee came to their home, thus expressing interest in the girl's motivations and goals. Lee feels lost and has no clear idea where to turn for help, expressing her need for support and understanding from those around her. Marion responds supportively, stating that she understands her feelings and expresses her sympathy, emphasizing that the girl deserves understanding and respect. The girl appears with flowers in her hands, expressing her love and desire to do something nice for others, which becomes the symbol of her kindness and care. The Duke, surprised by this unexpected gesture, asks where the flowers came from, seeking to understand their origin and significance, which expresses his curiosity and interest in the girl. The girl herself feels perplexed, not remembering how or where she got the flowers, since they happened to be near her when she woke up. Her fear is lest the Duke thinks she stole the flowers, and she tries to explain her situation to avoid misunderstanding. The girl reveals that she knows an older boy who sells flowers and suggests that her friends probably left the flowers near her while she slept, which becomes a possible explanation for their origin. The Duke's younger sister, Moran, moves on to the question of what kind of reward the girl wants, expressing her concern and willingness to help her in her need, which reflects her kindness and consideration for others. The girl, with touching modesty, declares that she is willing to accept any reward offered to her, or a quarter of the amount received by the adults. Full of curiosity, the Duke seeks to clarify the circumstances and asks how the girl learned of his search for William, expressing his surprise and interest. The girl tells him that she saw a man in the alleyway who resembled the wanted criminal described in the posters, which elicits an acknowledgement of her observation and vigilance. The Duke asks why she approached him specifically, given the multitude of other people, reflecting his surprise and desire to understand the girl's motives. She replies that it was an accident, but the Duke's surprise cannot be hidden, as he does not understand why it was he who caught her attention. The girl explains that she could have turned to anyone in the crowd for help, but the Duke attracted her by his beauty, not realizing that a high-born aristocrat stood before her. Noticing that Lee is aware of his directions to the train station, the Duke suddenly asks her about it, showing his interest in the details. The girl replies that a well-dressed man like the Duke would not run through dirty alleys, which allowed her to guess his route, reflecting her observation and considerations. The Duke expresses his admiration by recognizing her intelligence, which unexpectedly touches Lee and makes her feel appreciated. Reasoning with Lee, the Duke asks her to wait, explaining that he must discuss the girl's proposal with the family council, demonstrating his seriousness and responsibility. Lee, worried and unsure of her decision, hopes that her act was not a mistake, and tears come to her eyes, reflecting her excitement and doubt. The little girl wishes she could at least work in the stables, instead of doing house service or helping in the kitchen, expressing her preferences and desires for a job. The Duke's younger sister, Miran, feels sympathy for the little girl and ponders the possibility of taking her under her wing, expressing her concern. However, Jade expresses doubts about whether the child should be considered a pet, raising questions about her status in the house. The sister begins to argue her point, offering the alternative that Lee could go to the temple, where she would be provided with food and education, expressing concern for her welfare. Jade expresses his doubts about this idea, pointing out that perhaps Lee would become a nun, which is not in line with their family's plans and expectations. The Duke expresses concern about the rumors that might arise if they were to accept a young child as a servant, emphasizing the social aspects of the situation. Moran suggests that they consider adopting Lee into their family and providing her with a privileged upbringing. Jade regards the idea with disbelief, believing it to be a joke, but the Duke asserts that it is not just such a jest, but a very real suggestion. The Duke reminds her that the job was advertised 6 months ago, and that several maids have already been hired. Lee, feeling sad, discovers that her job offer has not been accepted. The Duke, expressing concern, asks Lee if she is willing to obey all of his instructions. She agrees, expressing her willingness to follow his directions. The Duke promises her 5 gold coins weekly, which comes as a shock to her, as the amount seems huge to her. Lee is puzzled about her future, not knowing what she is to become, and is surprised when the Duke says he will take her in as an adopted child. Lee's question about whether an adopted daughter is a type of servant elicits laughter from Moran, creating a touching moment. Little Lee feels surprised that she will be allocated her own servant, not realizing the full significance of the event. The news that she will be adopted adds even more surprise to the little girl's heart. Her sister, addressing her brother, points out the confusion in his words as he first speaks of money and then asks if she will be his daughter. The boy relays that the prince is waiting for the Duke, causing unexpected excitement in his routine. The Duke, engrossed in his own affairs, asks the boy to wait, showing indifference to the royal family. The girl, observing what is happening, wonders how one can be so indifferent to the royal family, seeing it as a manifestation of the greatness of the Duke's family. The Duke announces to the girl that, because of her young age, he cannot allow her to work, but thoughtfully offers to let her live in his house. The Duke's decision comes as a surprise to the girl when he orders her to become his daughter, opening the way to high society for her. Accepting the status of Cullen's daughter means entering high society and becoming part of the famous Duke's family. The Duke, clarifying whether she agrees, offers her a unique chance to become part of his noble house. The girl's agreement, mixed with feelings of happiness and uncertainty, indicates her inner struggle before such a radical change in her life. The Duke reminds her that such a chance comes only once in a lifetime, emphasizing its importance and value. The Duke makes a strong statement about giving appropriate instructions to the butler to make changes in the girl's life. The younger sister, stunned by this news, expresses her outrage, noting that the Duke does not even know her name. The Duke explains that there is no need to know her street name, as he intends to give her a new one, bringing with it warmth and care. At this time, Lee realizes that she has never given her name until now, and decides to share that her real name is Lee, given to her by her mother. The Duke, showing consideration for her, shares the assumption that she was probably born on a Monday, revealing his knowledge of the ancient meaning of Lee's name. Surprised by this news, Lee heads to the bathroom, where the Duke assures her that a maid will be arriving soon to help her bathe. The Duke informs her that the butler's name is Shin, bringing new members into the family and creating an atmosphere of warmth. Immersed in her new reality, The girl asks the Duke a question about what awaits her when she becomes the Duke's adopted daughter. This question reveals to her the prospect of her future in this cozy house, filled with care and attention. Accepting her new role as the little mistress, Lee announces to the Duke her decision to become part of their family, opening a new chapter in her life. The girl questions the reasons for her acceptance into the house with incredible sincerity, wondering why the Duke chose to bring in an orphan and what is now expected of her. The Duke, answering as an adult, emphasizes that in aristocratic families, taking in foster children is not unusual and is sometimes even considered a charitable act. He explains that sometimes families adopt children to keep their own children company, creating a special bond within the family circle. The Duke emphasizes that adopting orphans is a type of charity that benefits both parties. In this act of charity, the Duke sees a chance to give Lee an education and experience so that she can develop into a skillful professional in her field. Once in an aristocratic family and supported by the community, the little girl begins to dream of a future where, having grown into an admirable lady, she can repay the favor and contribute to the causes of charity. In a dangerous world where the streets are filled with criminals, Lee, left an orphan, realizes that fate may be favorable to her. Instead of struggling to survive, an opportunity is presented to not only avoid starvation, but also to receive an education that was previously out of her reach. Grateful for the help, Lee realizes that this is her chance at a new life, where there will be plenty of care and opportunity. The butler, realizing his rudeness, apologizes and promises to take care of Lee as a proper lady in this special family. It is noted that the Duke does not show equal concern for everyone, but makes Lee's health and well-being important goals. Lee returns to her butler to see if she has found shelter with the powerful mage, who is now her guardian. Despite her fears, Lee hopes for a peaceful and healthy life, despite the Duke's dark past, whose deeds have brought doom to many. Cullen, an unusual assassin, pulls Lee out of danger, becoming her new protector and guardian in this world. He is not only an assassin, but also the most powerful dark mage of the last 5 centuries, surrounding himself with an aura of mystery and magic that inevitably draws attention to him. In his struggle for survival, Duke Cullen has discovered a way to keep himself alive by drawing strength from dark magic, countering his own dark energy. His unique power lies in his ability to absorb mana enhanced by the magical energy extracted from the bodies of his victims. Upon learning of Cullen's abilities, his family members decide to use him as a weapon against the dark forces in an attempt to balance their influence on the world. Emerging from mysterious circumstances, Cullen becomes not just a member of his family, but a unique tool in their hands, capable of resisting darkness and giving hope for a bright future. His function in the family turns into the role of a killer of killers, who is the embodiment of justice, using his dark power. Thus, an anti-hero emerges whose task is to exterminate other villains, becoming part of the overall strategy of the royal dynasty. Cullen Levelton is a special-purpose weapon whose destiny is imbued with dark energy, and whose actions are aimed at bringing justice to the world. But as he delves into this role, the unique hero realizes that even in his dark appearance, and through his dark abilities, lurks a thirst for justice and a desire for it. In Lee's eyes, he appears to be a hero who battles inner demons and bears a heavy burden, yet inspires by his example. There was a knock on the door, reminding Lee that there were maids standing behind her, ready to offer her comfort and peace in the midst of her difficult trials. A freshness and lightness was brought into her life as the maids offered her the pleasures of a bath and massage, trying to make her stay as comfortable and pleasant as possible. In the bath, the dark water became a symbol of the availability of cleanliness and care, even for those accustomed to difficult conditions, emphasizing the importance of self-respect and self-care. The soft cloth used for wiping gently enveloped her body, reminding her that she was now in a safe shelter where care and nurturing were an integral part of her life. She felt how good it was to be groomed, glistening like a freshly plucked strawberry in full bloom, feeling alive and beautiful. A miracle had happened to her hair. It had taken on a luster and natural color, as if it were the result of the magic of care and transformation, giving it life and beauty. The maids assured her that she was ready, and she entered the renewed world feeling like a queen, welcoming new opportunities. A majestic table spread out before her, decorated as for a real banquet, as if representing a feast for the most important guest. She felt care and attention surrounding her from all sides, like a soft breeze bringing blessing and comfort. This evening was a time when warmth and care filled her soul, transforming difficult moments into an exquisite path to family comfort and well-being. Her heart felt as if this exquisite table had been prepared exclusively for her, leaving her all alone, waiting for someone to join her. Soon she realized, in anticipation, that this atmosphere of coziness and luxury was meant just for her, and that every detail had been created with her comfort in mind. After 20 minutes of patience, she, unable to bear it, proceeded to eat the meal that had been prepared with such care and attention. This time was not only a meal, but a renewal of the appetite lost during her illness and adaptation to her new life. For her, this lunch meant not only food, but also an opportunity to regain her strength and energy after the hardships she had endured, to find a sense of comfort and hope for the future. At the sight of this exquisite banquet, she experienced tears of gratitude for the care and attention that had been put into its preparation. Suddenly, Jade appeared, witnessing her emotions and her moment of weakness, which made her heartbeat quicken with anxiety about how he would look at her now. She was excited to think how he would appreciate her independence and did not hide her feelings, showing courage and candor. When she apologized for her actions, he showed care and comfort by taking her in his arms and carefully placing her in her seat, realizing that what mattered most at this moment was her well-being, not just food. Jade indicated for the girl to take the seat across from him, creating an atmosphere of care and attention that filled their meeting with warmth and comfort. The first thing that caught his eye was her blonde hair, which had an unusual shade of strawberry that emphasized her personality and uniqueness. The question of why her hair smelled like strawberries came out of the blue from Jade, sparking interest and surprise, adding mystery and playfulness to their interaction. Despite her younger age, the girl participated enthusiastically in the shared treat, expressing joy at the food and accepting it gratefully without looking back at her status. Recalling the difficult days in the neighborhood, she shared with Jade the principle of solidarity with friends. Even a small piece of bread is shared among them, building a community based on mutual help and support. This rule is not only a means of survival, but also an expression of mutual aid that strengthens their relationship, bringing them closer together in a common endeavor to support each other. The girl tried to earn her young master's favor, but, at the same time, was afraid that her appetite would cause Jade to have a negative opinion of her. Nevertheless, Jade assured her that he watched her closely and appreciated her restraint in eating, which emphasized his respect for her. He not only noted her habits, but also expressed his admiration for her ability to handle so much food, which surprised Lee. Lee was surprised that her words seemed to pass Jade by, causing some misunderstanding between them. Instead of discussing her issues, Jade invited her to eat more, expressing his interest in continuing to watch her. Comparing Lee to his former cat, Popo, gave the overall scene a light and caring tone, adorning their conversation with special attention and warmth. Popo was a beautiful cat who could eat giant portions of food and was always restless about her diet, as Jade revealed when sharing a story about his late favorite. The story of the cat left a shadow of nostalgia in the air that echoed in the heart of everyone present, creating an atmosphere of peace and understanding. Lee expressed her sympathy for the cat's passing, showing her sensitivity to other people's losses and strengthening the bond between them even more. Jade offered to let her see the stuffed Popo, but Lee, feeling uneasy, dismissed the idea, fearing that the young man might use her. The fear that Jade might take advantage of her distrust for his own purposes stirred in Lee's heart, causing her to feel a certain amount of nervousness. The lunch scene turned into a wonderful moment of sharing stories and experiences, which strengthened the bond between Lee and Jade, enriching their communication with depth and understanding. Jade, who was an environmental researcher, made every effort to change the girl's fate, but his attempts were unsuccessful, failing to give her the results she expected. The girl began to doubt the sincerity of his actions, seeing them as an obligatory routine, rather than a true desire for change. Remembering past meetings with Jade, she sees him as a hidden, but not bad, man who remains withdrawn in his world despite his efforts. Jade's former cat, Popo, becomes the subject of their conversation, and Lee expresses gratitude for the experience she had with her, which adds a new level of understanding and connection to their interactions. Jade, surprised by Lee's interest in their friendship, decides to learn more, and she confesses that, because of him, she has found a reason to stay in this mansion. Jade claims that the decision for her to stay was made by his father, and that if he had not intervened, his own clashes might have forced him to leave home. What emerges is an insight into the complex relationships within an aristocratic family, where even the most noble acts can have their own hidden conditions and motives. At this point, Lee begins to see Jade not only as an enigmatic gentleman, but also as someone for whom one can feel genuine gratitude and friendship, which adds new aspects to their relationship and strengthens their bond. Lee argues that brother and sister cannot be friends, expressing her views on the relationship. Jade, who does not share this view, emphasizes that this will not prevent them from becoming closer to each other and even expresses satisfaction at seeing her enjoying her food. Responding to his attention, she explains that she has been eating unexpectedly a lot today, going beyond her usual eating habits. During an active exchange of words, Jade tries to learn more about her preferences, pointing out the red flowers with gold stripes, causing the young lady to be shocked. The discussion of secret adoption historically represents the uncharted and mysterious nature of what is going on, causing a dialogue between the two. The serious facial expression adds an air of mystery to the moment under discussion, increasing the intrigue and misunderstanding. Jade's question about the reasons for the adoption questions the Duke's motives and hints that the past has deep and mysterious roots. Lee's answer, lacking clarity due to not knowing the true reasons, gives her the image of an enigmatic heroine with many secrets and hidden sides. Jade, throwing a defiant question about a possible murder, expresses concern about Lee's past actions, prompting discussion. She claims that she has not dealt with murder or prisons, portraying herself as a pure-hearted girl and denying such accusations. A question asked by the boy about additional bad deeds leads to a misunderstanding that questions the sincerity of her intentions and purity of soul. The story of the purse reveals Lee's humanity and kindness, demonstrating that even in difficult situations, she strives to do good deeds, which she does in the name of goodness and mercy. The description of how Lee endured her punishment emphasizes her resilience and fortitude, giving her a touching characteristic. The question of what role her father plays in this situation indicates that Lee is not just a toy in the hands of others, but a person with her own history and dignity. Once in the palace, Lee begins to doubt the reality of her position. Thoughts arise that she may just be a puppet in Cullen's hands. The painful doubts begin to torment her. Should she have been brought into this luxurious environment at all? Or should she have stayed in her familiar surroundings? Jade has been asking questions about a mysterious moment in the past when Lee was slapped, in an effort to solve the mystery. The question about the villain who had wronged her awakens memories in her mind, but time had gradually erased them, making them blurry and uncertain. Jade promises to recreate an image of that villain in the form of a softball so that Lee could interact with it if she remembered him, offering a chance to reconstruct the past. The girl hesitates, pondering whether to bring up the past, realizing it could cause her pain and discomfort. She introduces herself as Lee, a 9-year-old girl whose childhood was spent in the grim slums of Satan in Levelon, surrounded by poverty and destitution. The most important person to her was her mother, but her loss took its toll on Lee, leaving the girl alone and unsupported. Living in back alleys turned her into a little beggar, forced to seek compassion in a relentless struggle to survive in the chaos of the world around her. All available information indicated that Lee had nothing to do with dark deeds. She was just a child abandoned to her fate, and without the support of her mother, there was nothing in this story that could raise suspicion or doubt. The butler carefully conveyed to the Lord all the information he had managed to find out about the little heroine named Lee, emphasizing its importance and relevance. The Lord, showing interest, questioned whether Lee had been attracted because of the rare flower, or whether there were other motives and roots in that decision. Yes, this flower is indeed unique, and its origins are a source of wonder and interest to all who encounter it. He described the red hippocampus with a golden pattern that had been sent by the criminal who killed Lee's mother as a kind of symbol of defiance. The Lord asked the butler a question. Was Lee entangled in the trap, or was she colluding with the criminal? She was probably either a victim of circumstance or perhaps involved by misunderstanding, the Lord remarked, expressing his concern and weariness. In response, the butler objected, emphasizing that a 9-year-old child could not be reduced to villainy by a spy. The Lord cautioned him, emphasizing, "Though she looks cute, remember to beware. After all, your weaknesses include caring for children and animals, Shin." The Lord warned, realizing that the butler's affection could be used against them. The Lord then wondered whether the remains of the 30 dead had been recovered and handed over to their families.